to the happy preacher, to Mrs. Ferris, to the Reverend Dr. King, to members of the King and Ferris family, to the distinguished guests, to all of you assembled here today, I want to just say how honored I am to be a part of this great occasion honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I am always lifted up and straightened out in my own personal spiritual life when I have the privilege of worshiping in the Horizon Sanctuary of Ebenezer Baptist Church. Given my line of work and my commitment as a Christian believer, I've spent many hours in worship services, and sometimes I'm lifted up and sometimes I'm bored to death. Sometimes I hum under my breath, "Kumbaya, come by here, Lord. Come by here." But we never have to sing Kumbaya at Ebenezer. And certainly we don't on this glorious day. I think that it's time for the religious community in the United States of America. And I'm actually not talking so much about the African American religious community. I'm really talking about the white religious community. I'm really hoping that from the pulpits of the land, God's shining dream of a new heaven and a new earth is mentioned. I'm hoping that the prophetic witness of the prophets is lifted up again and again. I'm hoping that that radical rabbi from Nazareth called Jesus, his teachings, which grew out of the great Hebrew tradition, its moral vision. The disciple of Jesus, whose name was Martin, he was himself a preacher and a prophet, and they were radical people. Radical in the sense of saying, it doesn't have to be this way. There is a new kingdom coming. It's here already. Radical in the sense that war is not the answer. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Jesus said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they are the ones who will be filled." I love our city for many reasons, and I guess I'm glad that there is on Peachtree Street now, just at the curve near the temple and Peachtree Christian Church, there's a store that's selling yachts. Yes, I said yachts. You know, big boats that sail on the water, which is fine if you want a boat. But you can't fill yourself up with things, can you? I'm glad to be here today. I see glory in all your faces. And I'm here as a white woman, born in the segregated city of Atlanta and raised in the segregated city of Meridian, Mississippi. I'm here just to tell the truth. I just want to say that racial prejudice, both overt and covert, were a part of the air that I breathed. Be nice, but don't hug her, honey. Mothers said to their white children. Speaking of the black women who clean their houses and wash their clothes, honey, don't hug her. It's not what we do. It was the custom of the day that when white people built new houses, the architect, just as a matter of course, would include a bathroom in the carport or in the basement for the outside yard man or the inside maid. And you're going to think I'm making this up, but it's the truth. In my high school, some of the more popular boys would take their dates to the movies, and then when the movie was over, would stop by an all-night Stop and Shop and buy a carton of eggs. The next thing on the agenda was a ride through what was called Colored Town, looking for someone, anyone out on the street at night toward whom those eggs could be hurled. Maybe one egg, maybe two, maybe three. It could have been a little boy walking back to his grandmother's house. It could have been a housekeeper coming home from a long day at work. It could have been an elderly man with a limp in his gait. Everybody was fair game. And I'm just here to tell you the truth that I know. Nobody in my immediate world, my church, my family, my friends were active at all in the violence and the deliberate kinds of injustice and exclusion that were going on. But I have to say, as Dr. King reminded us, there are all kinds of normalcy. And if you sort of fade into that silent collusion, and you don't stand up and you don't speak up, you have missed the mark as a human being. And so I don't stand here today with a long and heroic resume of all I have done for the sake of social justice, but I will say that I've tried to do my part. I read what Dr. King wrote. I listen to what he said. I try to order my life according to the values that he held up. And no, I didn't walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge 50 years ago. But 15 years ago, my daughter, who lives in L.A., called and said, "Mom, let's go on a road trip. Where do you want to go?" I said, "Let's go to Selma." And so she flew over here from LAX to Hartsfield Jackson, and we got in the car and we drove to Selma. She's doing her part out there in LA too. We stayed that night in a hotel. The next day we rode across the bridge. We were silent. Then we cried. And then we talked. And then we vowed never to stand on the sideline lining up with the status quo when the status quo is injustice and inhumanity to other human beings. We've given a big shout out today for these wonderful young people who have encouraged us to get up and get going. And Reverend Dr. Bernice King is hopeful about the future because of the young people. But listen, I'm old and I'm not through yet. I'm hoping that you and I, who are over 39 years old, that we can still advocate and we can still agitate. I think of Sojourner Truth and how she kept speaking up and acting out. And one day when she was giving a speech, the people to whom she was speaking didn't like what she was saying very much. And as the audience's irritation grew more audible with mumbling and grumbling, a man finally stood up and said, "Oh, woman, I don't care any more for your anti-slavery talk than I care about an old flea bite." And Sojourner Truth answered, "That's all right with me, sir. The Lord willing, I'm going to keep you scratching." We all have our favorite Dr. King saying. My North Star comes also from his Nobel Peace Prize speech. I mean, I live by this. I want to live by this. I believe, he said, that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. Do you believe it? Then let's keep scratching, my friends. Let's keep scratching.